Hey guys, how's it going? Stephen Dubuque here on YouTube as Not Bad for a Target, back again with another video. So, the main focus of this video is going to be about visual effects from targeting, about being shown these weird, super mysterious holograms as a targeted individual, as well as some other types of visual effects that myself and many other targets have been shown and experienced, such as creepy shadow displays and shining lights in our surrounding environments, usually in our rooms at home, and even a little bit about text being shown to you in your field of vision, which seems to be a function of V2K or synthetic telepathy, which somehow has this ability in addition to the more commonly reported microwave hearing effect. And what does any of that even mean, right? This is such a strange and specific topic and will no doubt sound absolutely crazy to people who have never experienced this before. But as with all of my videos that I create surrounding the topic of targeted individuals and gang stalking, I feel compelled to share this, to share as much knowledge as I have, to expose this as much as I can, and to speak with authority, conviction, and confidence, since I have the truth on my side. I have direct personal experience with these creepy holograms, these creepy lights, shadows, and text being shown to me, so I can attest to this being completely true. And much like the approach I took in my video, Credibility for Targeted Individuals, today I will show you clips of other targets describing the same exact visual effects from targeting that I'm talking about. Therefore, what I'm talking about cannot be simply written off as drug hallucinations or paranoid delusions. If that was the case, then how could all of us be describing the same exact thing? Now, I don't know how this is being done. I'm not a physicist or some genius mad scientist. As far as the technical details, I'm in way over my head here, guys, okay? What I do know for a fact, though, is that it is being done to myself and to others, and since it's completely unknown and hidden, it makes it that much worse, that much more sinister and completely scandalous. Therefore, it is well worth discussing, comparing notes on with each other, investigating, and exposing to the best of my ability. Because like everything else in this targeted individual category, none of it's good, right? And although this type of terroristic crime is relatively new and can't be labeled or put into a neat little box, these holograms and shadow displays, etc., ultimately fall into the categories of highly advanced, probably military-grade technology being used and possibly tested on the unsuspecting public. Extremely invasive surveillance and psychological harassment, intimidation, stalking, possibly some form of mind hacking, and a new super creepy twist on the term cyberbullying that ends up leaving the victim shocked, bewildered, terrified, and traumatized. This video is for those victims, to validate their experiences with these holograms and other visual effects from targeting. To make one video specifically about this, for reference, I've compiled as much testimony as I could find from people who have seen these holograms and as much information as I could gather on this subject. Now, it's important to note that not all targeted individuals are shown holograms, shadows, lights, and other visually deceptive tricks. Every target's experience with targeting and gang stalking is unique and seems to be tailored specifically to them. Although there are remarkable similarities in our stories and with the tactics we are subjected to, I am just saying that not all targeted individuals will be able to relate to this video. That's okay. I am making this video, however, for those who can relate and who desperately need their own experiences validated, to assure them that yes, they indeed saw what they saw, and that no, they're not crazy, far from it, that has happened to me, Stephen, and many other people out there as well. And this video is also for the new targeted individual who still doesn't realize what he or she may be going through. All they know is that their life has gotten very strange. Someone or a group of someones is harassing them. Their devices are hacked, maybe. It seems like they are being monitored and surveilled, and they were even shown holograms? Like what? I distinctly remember how frustrating this phase was for me at that time, trying to figure out what was going on. I would ask myself, what was that? How did any of that just happen? Like, yo, what were those holograms? Before I had the terms targeted individual and gang stalking to search, I would search the internet for things like being shown holograms, seeing hologram faces, things like that. Although my channel doesn't have many subscribers, I'm still hoping that if some confused new target searches YouTube for holograms that with any luck, maybe they'll land on this video right here. So again, in this video, I will show clips of other people who have experienced seeing these holograms like I have. I'll show a 7-minute clip from Matthew Aaron's excellent presentation on targeting, in which he discusses a theory of his, which could be a possible explanation for how these visual effects from targeting are achieved. I also found an interesting and seemingly very relevant 2018 article from Forbes that talks about how scientists at UC Berkeley are using optogenetics to project holograms into the brain to create experiences. And I even have a great written testimony of someone who I've been emailing with back and forth, who offered to write out his experiences with holograms for me so that I could use his testimony for this video. This is the exact reason why I have my contact information listed on my YouTube, so that we can share and compare our experiences, to validate each other, to work together to try and expose this stuff. This was the first email he sent to me, presumably in response to my personal testimony video, part 3 out of the Vulgar Night Through God's Grace, in which I described my experience seeing these holograms. So his email address is blocked out because he did wish to remain anonymous for this video. But again, this right here, this email, is the exact reason why I have my contact information listed on my YouTube channel. Because this stuff is so strange, guys, right? Like, trust me, I never thought I'd end up being a guy on YouTube talking about holograms and being shown holograms and flashlights. Okay, that was never my life goal or intention to talk about such strange things. Except that it happened. And I can't deny that it happened. Therefore, it needs to be discussed and exposed. And the fact that other people have experienced the same thing just is further affirmation and acknowledgement of the things that we each have gone through. So anyway, here's his email. It says, the title is, "Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, I hope this email reaches you well. I am on a very similar journey, just recently discovering what gang stalking and TIs is, as I've been going through it for years. I have gone through exactly the same experiences at multiple locations in various states, and I'm absolutely blown away to find out that other people have the same stories to share. When you shared that story about the video playing on your flashlight, I had that same experience happen to me twice on a reflective surface. Honestly, I'm just reaching out to say thank you. It's extremely difficult to navigate the world and be able to trust anyone. But honestly, thank you for sharing your story. It's very helpful to hear something that acknowledges what I've gone through. Have a good night." So later in this video, I'll read out loud this gentleman's full written experience with holograms, which he so graciously offered to write out and share with me so that I could use it for this video. But first, let's go over my main experience with these holograms, the one that this gentleman emailed me regarding. My traumatic experience that kicked all this off, all of this research and my ongoing quest for answers and explanations, my entire inspiration and motivation for making this video right here, and the catalyst for my passion in trying to find out what the hell this targeting stuff even is. Even though I haven't been overtly targeted in a year and a half, and I've only ever seen these holograms a handful of times, an experience like this really changes you. Well, it certainly changed me at least. And I mean far beyond the initial fear and intimidation that resulted from seeing such strange things. Again, here I am now, a year and a half later. No holograms, no V2K, and even still, I just can't let it go.
But once you know it's there, it becomes a mission.
This whole experience of being targeted and then becoming aware of just how huge this thing is, how deep it goes, how hidden and scandalous it is, has completely changed my worldview in regards to the evil that exists in this world, and in regards to what type of things I thought were even possible. I saw a creepy, intimidating hologram video play out before me, but not on an electronic device. It seemed to play on the surface of a glass light bulb of a normal flashlight I was holding. And I say it seemed to play on the light bulb because obviously my flashlight is not set up to play videos, right? And even the word video, that's not exactly it either. It was like a live, interactive, virtual reality, FaceTime, hologram. And I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. But as with most of the experiences of targeted individuals, it's very difficult to even decide which words to use when discussing these things, to find the correct terminology to properly convey and accurately describe what I saw. because the experience is so far outside the scope of the things that I'm and collectively we're all familiar with. And I will be the first to admit, I am not sure about the exact factual nature of what I saw. Remote neural monitoring, synthetic telepathy, V2K, this stuff is deception tech, man. Covert and hidden to the nth degree. I do know a few things, though. That it happened. That this experience was real. That this was not and could not have been some paranoid drug-induced hallucination. That these videos and moving, fluid images were put directly into my line of sight, about 12 inches in front of my face. That it came from some external source, outside of my vessel, shown to me or induced or put upon me from someone or something else. That it was unconsensual. I did nothing to initiate it. That it was a display of power and dominance over me at the time, a big reveal, showing me yet another capability of this technology, a new trick up their sleeves, directly related to all the electronic harassment, V2K, and all the other high strangeness I had already been receiving up to this point. That it was meant to intimidate, harass, and scare me. The intention behind it was clearly to instill fear in me. I knew these things all along, before I even knew what a targeted individual was. But seeing and hearing all of these people from all over the world describing the same exact things that I went through just cemented it, and served as further confirmation of what I already knew to be true. I ask that you guys hear me out today. Try to suspend your disbelief, to watch this video to the end. And bear with me, guys, we're going to do a deep dive here. I'm going to start with my story, but then I'm going to back it up with other people's very similar experiences and even some possible explanations. Let's get into it. So, the build-up to my hologram story is worth going over, as it involved heavy gang stalking, street theater, an elaborate manufactured scenario, and I truly believe even artificial thought insertion and forced irrational decision-making. Even as I'm reading this out loud right now, I'm thinking, man, this is all going to sound especially batshit crazy. That's okay, though, because, again, I speak in truth, and I don't claim to know things that I don't know. If I don't know something for sure, I will say I believe or I suspect, like in this first point I'm making regarding possible artificial thought insertion. So my main hologram story took place throughout one day in 2022 during one of the heaviest targeting episodes. At this time, all my cell phones that I were using were utterly hacked and the screens were being controlled remotely, and I was getting heavy V2K 24/7. Here's how it starts. But saying that my devices are hacked doesn't properly convey what I was going through. It was literally as if I was hacked. My mind, my thoughts, my entire life felt entirely manipulated. It's so difficult to explain. For instance, one day I get in my head that since I'm hacked, my son's mother, Rachel, was hacked or compromised as well, and then I needed to walk all the way over to her house to explain all this to her. In retrospect, I truly wonder if that thought was my own at all. It was as if I was somehow tricked to go along with that notion, which literally made no sense at all. First of all, I still had no earthly idea what was happening to me. So what exactly was I going to explain to Rachel? I'm not going to get into this aspect too much. Naturally, I have no way of proving something like this, but I really would like you to consider, like I have, the possibility that this whole entire day, this entire experience which culminated in me being harassed with holograms, was manufactured by my targeters, who were using this technology on me, initially planting a foreign thought into my head to go over Rachel's to explain everything to her.
The mind control operator can go on to push thoughts and feelings onto the subject or steer them in a particular direction on something. 5. They may go on to do something really irrational, deciding they need to show someone what they know. They need to show someone. That's all they know. These are just insider terms describing the dumbed-down robotic state of the subject. It doesn't matter if the subject has an IQ of 160. A controller directs his thoughts and emotions over theirs, replaces them totally and directs them absolutely, totally, and silently in perfect stealth.
People who are going through torture every single day. There is not a moment that I'm walking down the street, because transmission can also happen through the eyes. I can be watching a program on TV, Jeopardy for example, I love Jeopardy, or I go on a ship and I play trivia. I can't play trivia because I'm given the answers. So Jeopardy, questions to do with sports, which I don't follow unless it's Australian Aussie rules or swimming. I don't follow American football, but I'm given the answers very, very clearly. I can, as I say, delineate between my own thoughts and those which are coming into my head. And part of this process is also that they take you, as you become so exhausted, they take your sentences and give you the words in advance of you actually producing the words that you want to. So part of my daily routine is I don't respond to the voices at all. They're virtually non-stop. I don't respond to them because I can literally have the image come in at the same time as the voice coming in.
And you can imagine how useful that would be to manipulate politicians or news broadcasters.
When I first saw that first clip I just played, my jaw dropped. That this mind control technology has a function that induces that specific of an effect in the targeted individual, that makes them want to show something to someone. They don't know what it is, they just know that they have to show something to someone. I believe that this is exactly what was used on me on that day, and that this forced thought was the catalyst and springboard for this whole elaborate gang stalking setup that ended with me being shown a hologram. How they orchestrate together all of these details just boggles the mind. I'm starting to speculate that AI is being used for all the seemingly impossible synchronicities that are occurring in our stories. But however it's being done, I truly believe that my decision to go over to Rachel's house was a technologically induced decision. Whether or not that is the case, here's what happened next. First of all, I still had no earthly idea what was happening to me. So what exactly was I going to explain to Rachel? Secondly, just because this was happening to me, why would I then assume it was happening to her as well? There's no logic to that whatsoever. I suppose that could be attributed to paranoid, delusional, and drug-induced mania that no doubt indeed played a part, but it really felt like this whole day was orchestrated, as will be affirmed with what took place soon after. But lastly, me going over to my ex-wife / mother of my son's house made no sense for me to do in this bad condition. According to the picture I had painted to her, I was supposed to be sober, and I certainly was not. So anyways, I'm at a Family Dollar here in Pittsfield when I make a definite decision. Okay, I'm going to walk over to Rachel's to see if she's compromised and explain everything to her. About a 30-minute walk. No sooner did I have the thought and walk out of the store than a car immediately pulled up to me with 3 people in it. 2 girls and a guy, I believe. And the girl driver says to me, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" Now, around here, that has literally never happened to me. Especially from strangers I've never seen before. And especially shouldn't have happened in the condition I was in. Hadn't slept in 2 days, sweating bullets, bug-eyed, strung out on meth. I must have looked insane. But at the time, I was like, oh wow, actually, yeah, I do need a ride. Thanks. I'm going to Henry Ave. They drove me over. I'm at Family Dollar. I decide that I need to go over to Rachel's house. This car randomly pulls up to me, asks if I need a ride. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take a ride. So I'm going to Henry Ave. So they drive me over. I get out, let myself in Rachel's house, and immediately start inspecting everything, looking for wires or cameras or microphones. Again, anything tech. There's no one home initially. As I'm in the kitchen near the glass door, rifling through the blinds, and this part's important, and there's a reason why I bring up all these details. So I'm in the kitchen near the glass doors, like rifling through the blinds, like, you know, like a weirdo. And as I'm doing that, rifling through the blinds, I shit you not, in the middle of the floor behind me, about 20 feet in the living room, this bright light starts flashing. I immediately turn around and see a little pocket-sized light with one button on it in the middle of the living room floor. I pick it up, press the button. It changes from one effect to a direct beam. So like I hit it one time and it went like a strobe setting. I press it again, direct beam. This thing was powerful for a little, and this is a real thing in her house. No one was there. Anyways, I press it again, and the light shuts off. I put it in my pocket, and for some reason, I don't exactly know why, I don't look outside to see who threw the thing in there, presumably through the window. It would have had to have been, because the front door was locked. I let myself in the back door. I can only presume that while I was rifling through the blinds, someone threw it through her window in the living room. She's got a couple there. Probably out of fear, I didn't check to see who was outside. This thing was so scary that deep down, I probably didn't want to see what was on the other side of that door, or who was outside throwing lights in Rachel's house. What if they had a gun? I don't know what these people are capable of, you know? So it was probably out of fear and confusion that I didn't look, and I do regret that. Nevertheless, I resume inspecting her house. I remember having a lunchbox filled with Xanax that I brought downstairs because at this point, I thought the packages I was receiving in the mail were probably bugged. I took my pants off because I again suspected my clothes of being bugged. I'm participating in my own destruction now, using meth all the time, not thinking clearly. In addition to the gang stalking and targeting, I am a mess. So after a couple minutes of pointless inspection, a knock on the door. I cautiously open it to see Rachel's sister's husband, who lived right next door. And he was like, Steve, what's going on, man? Basically, her whole immediate family lived and still lives on that block. And they started coming over one by one. Her mother, her grandfather, her grandfather, her grandmother. Thank God my son wasn't there at this time to see me like this. Needless to say, this was probably the most embarrassing episode of my entire life, as you can imagine. I had no way of rationally explaining what I was doing. God bless Rachel's mom, though, who handled me so graciously and kindly, more so than I deserved. Just kind of slowly guiding me out of the house, helped give me some more reusable bags to gather the random shit of mine that was all scattered everywhere. I said I had to get my lunchbox downstairs with the Xanax in it because, I realized my drugs were down there. I had to go get them. Just to add to this almost comically ridiculous shit show, I must not have secured the lunchbox closed, so I literally was dropping pills. And this is while I was at the top of the stairs walking by her whole family, who was looking at me in horror at the counter. I have this lunchbox in my hand that's not closed. It's spilling pills. Literally was dropping pills, all different kinds, as I was walking past everyone. I pathetically, sheepishly muttered, "Oh, these are my prescriptions." At this point, the grandfather yelled at me, "What the fuck are you doing, man? You're killing yourself, Steve. Get help." Understandably, I slinked out of there back to Target apartment number 2 with Eric. So fast forward a few hours. I'm in my room with my own flashlight and magnifying glass, just inspecting every inch of my room. So I recently went to CVS and bought a bunch of things I thought maybe would help me investigate all this, which ended up coming down to a flashlight, a magnifying glass, other random shit that didn't make any sense. So fast forward a few hours, I'm in my room with my own flashlight and magnifying glass, just inspecting every inch of my room, still looking for answers, again in vain. All of a sudden, I'm looking into this flashlight, when all of a sudden a video starts playing in front of my eyes, directly on the surface of the glass bulb. I will never forget this. It literally haunts me to this day. It was like a hologram type color spectrum. It's like blue, red, purple, yellow. And I don't mean like a hologram, like a hologram appeared in 3D before my eyes. No, it was 2D on the surface. It looked like a video, like a FaceTime call or a Zoom call. And it was fully interactive, talking back and forth. It almost had a gasoline-like haze to it. Not very good, high quality. It definitely wasn't HD. It was pretty sketchy quality. Also had the quality similar to those little GIF repeating loop images people use in text. And again, when I say hologram, I don't mean 3D. I just mean the colors in this video that I was somehow watching on the top of my flashlight was kind of like a colors of the rainbow hologram type spectrum. And what was the video of, you ask? Well, right off the bat, it was fucking Richard waving with a creepy smile. as if to say, is your mind blown? And my mind was blown instantly. Now I could hear him talking. Mind you, I had not seen or talked to this man in a year. And now I also hear Eric's voice. Hey, Steve. I said, oh, so you... And remember, he said he didn't know who Richard was. So I see his face. I'm like, oh, so you do know Richard. He's like, oh, yeah, I know Richard. A weird aspect of this, kind of Stockholm Syndrome style. I was almost happy to see Richard in some demented, sick, and twisted way. I remember saying, remember that Julia song you wrote? He laughed and nodded. I chuckled and said, yeah, that was kind of funny. And another reason why I think I was like almost happy to see him was like as soon as I saw his face, I was like, I knew it. This motherfucker again. I knew I wasn't done with him. After that, he made a gesture with his hands as if to present or introduce something. When it cuts to a 2 or 3 second clip of me from behind about 20 feet, rifling through, remember, in Rachel's house, rifling through the curtains like a fucking weirdo, like a crazy person. But now I'm back at my apartment, and I'm looking into a flashlight and see a video, first of Richard, then him going like, now it's me from behind, about 20 feet, rifling through the curtains of the glass door in Rachel's house earlier that day. The perspective of the video matched up exactly with where I picked up that light in her living room. And just as soon as I saw that, the video stopped playing, back to just shining like a normal flashlight. The whole thing probably lasted 15 to 30 seconds. At this point, I'm terrified to spend another night in my room, so I rent a room in a cheap motel a few blocks away. I only bring this up for a couple reasons. One being I did not have a job at the time because I was falsely accused at Cumberland Farms of stealing, which I did not do. I couldn't afford to be renting hotel rooms, especially when I had what should be a perfectly good and safe room of my own that I've been paying rent for, again, months in advance. This time I don't think it was 3, I think I was paid 2 months in advance. But still, my point is, that's how bad this targeting gang stalking shit is. You don't feel safe at all. It's creepy to the point of being terrifying. You're not safe when you're being maliciously harassed at this level. So there it is. That's my main story with holograms. That wasn't the only time I was shown one, but definitely the most notable one. There was another time I saw Richard's face, who was a previous landlord of mine and one of my main gang stalkers, waving creepily again, and then he showed me what appeared to be 3 attractive women hooking up. Just more vulgar stuff, right? Par for the course at this point. At first I thought that those women were all with him wherever he was at, but then I realized, oh, he's just watching porn. Okay, well, this is awkward and weird. Why is another man showing me porn that he's watching? And through these freaky virtual reality holograms? Like, what the is even happening? Man, so, okay, I can't change how people react to a story like this, whether they believe it or not. I'm not sure I would have believed something like this before it happened to me a year and a half ago. Probably not. And I don't have the courage to ask people who have seen my videos if they believe all of it or not. I would suspect, though, that most non-targets who have watched my videos believe parts of my story. Like probably that I had a weird landlord who was probably messing with me, playing games, and that my devices were being hacked. But that the rest of it, like the holograms, shadows on the wall, tricks with light, they probably think that I'm telling the truth the best that I know it, but that this didn't really happen, that it was a drug-induced hallucination from meth. I get it, truly. I can't be mad at people for not believing the things that I went through because, again, it is so far outside the scope of the things that collectively we as a society are all familiar with and what we think to be possible. Having said that, however, I will say that it is incredibly frustrating. The fact that my trauma has to be debated before it's acknowledged or even listened to. That, unfortunately, is the plight of the targeted individual, though, isn't it? I know for a fact that this was not some drug hallucination. I'm a sane individual. I know my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. I've been sober a year and a half now, but before that, I have had extensive experience with all sorts of drugs, and I know what drug hallucinations are and what they aren't. Drugs could never produce the virtual reality type hologram that was shown to me, okay? This is something else, something new. And like I said before, I already knew this before I even knew what a targeted individual was. But then I discovered the terms targeted individual and gang stalking, started investigating them with a passion, and quickly discovered that literally every single thing I went through was being described by countless others. So you don't believe that I could have possibly been shown these holograms, that I'm making it up, or that it was just a hallucination? Well, what about all these guys? They were all hallucinating holograms as well? Oh, and before I get started with these clips, one of these people I am about to show is from a girl named Francine. Or that's what the video title says anyway. I randomly found this video, which only has like 25 videos, or excuse me, which only has like 25 views on a random channel with not many subscribers. It's an 11-hour compilation of separate videos she's made, which I will leave a link to in the description of this video. I watched the entire thing, and I highly, highly recommend that you guys check it out as well. She is absolutely brilliant, and it is eye-opening to see and hear her, in her own words, whistleblowing, coming out with her disclosure regarding this surveillance, communication, artificial intelligence weapon system. So for me, I've made all my videos after the fact, not currently experiencing V2K, thank God. But unlike myself, while she's recording her videos, she's actually in the midst of full-blown targeting in V2K. So she'll be talking, saying her own words, and then comment saying, I'm hearing with us, I'm hearing for us. Stuff like that. It is fascinating to hear her talk about all this, all while the V2K she is getting seems determined to distract her and throw her off course. It is one of the most interesting and best displays of someone who is actively going through V2K that I've ever seen. I would love to know how to get in touch with her, to do an interview with her, or even just to talk to her, ask her some questions about targeting, and just see how she's doing these days. If anyone watching this video knows who she is, or what she's up to these days, or where I can find her channel, anything, please let me know. Thanks.
Virtual interface torture, an emotive virtual interface technology over remote distances. For me, this is holographic, and that means I don't just see it. It's a virtual interface that actually takes up space and a density in my field. I'm hearing in my awareness, and it projects.
I mean, I've even experienced holograms, holographic weapons. I've even experienced that.
Including false light hologram visuals. I'm talking about visuals.
And then I started seeing holograms, like faces and stuff like that. And they started messing with the computer in my car for various destinations. And I went to some of them and I was seeing holograms, faces, and various other objects.
I do receive audio and visual transmissions to the brain and to the body.
I sometimes see the holograms or holographic imagery that other guests on Ella's podcast also describe.
It gives you kind of an inside track on where the technology is going. And one of the issues, this is from June 2004, and it's on controlled effects. And these are effects not just to impact machinery or hardware or computers, but it actually the idea of affecting the ultimate system, the human being. And this is what it says. By studying and modeling the human brain and nervous system, the ability to mentally influence or confuse personnel is also possible. Through sensory deception, it may be possible to create synthetic images or holograms to confuse an individual's visual sense, or in a similar manner confuse his sense of sound, taste, touch, or smell. In other words, to create artificial illusions that are so real you cannot distinguish them from reality. This type of technology, whether it's in the head or an external manifestation, both of which are being pursued actively by the military as one of the major areas of research in the 21st century.
Broadcast a hologram. Well, either way, in the right circumstances, you can see them where they are. Okay, you can see the person that's connected to you where they are, because that's the way the broadcast works. Okay, so you really need to create certain circumstances, and reflective surfaces are good for that, and using prisms and like glass, glass or like something like a iPad screen or something like that with some prisms and certain kind of lighting to be able to see that form of broadcast. Computer screens work well for that. When somebody's connected to you and you have the screen off, a lot of times you'll be able to look into that screen and see them where they are. Just because of the waves coming to you, it's just how it works. Okay, I'm not a physicist and not some sort of electrical engineer, so I can't exactly tell you how that works, but I can tell you that for certain 100% it does work that way. And I've been able to look into a computer screen that was turned off, or just a blank screen on a phone or anything really, or even in glass, and see Emily or Marcus or several other of these gang stalkers where they are.
Directly to the brain. All of these media systems that are communicating with us over the web, where you have the option to click like or dislike or move on to another page or X out. Can you imagine having that superimposed upon the mind, upon the body, upon the heart, to have no choice? Really, this is an entirely forced process, this communication system that directly transmits visuals and audible dialogue to the brain.
I have had people tell me about little holographic images, almost to the point of like VR.
So you had a sort of a hologram, basically,
Yes.
on your wall?
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that. I had that happen twice at the beginning of my targeting. So you're in the hologram phase like I was.
Yes. Yes.
From how the technology evolved and how it would be used against us. This area in particular, in fact, the Military Air Force Research Lab refers to this whole area as controlled effects, the idea of being able to overload all of the sensory systems so that you can create complete sort of holographic experiences.
And then also you get into holographic pictorial language, which is something else DARPA uses on you and your subconscious. By beaming in holographic images and pictures used to trigger specific parts of your brain.
Everywhere, if you had people coming in gang stalking me, and I was honestly scared. I thought, man, this is the final part of my program where they kill me. I mean, I was literally, talk about PTSD. This stuff instills in you. But they had in this scenario, they actually had. I would look at street lights, and they actually had one of these street lights turn into this this weird person with like a face, and then it had a noose and it was like hanging itself, like going up and down the street, like I don't know, it was like like dropping like. Mm-hmm. It sounds fantastic. It sounds fantastic, and because it is, but they can do this. This technology is out there. They can induce images in your head.
This technology can be used to beam images and even motion pictures into one's brain. Images and motion pictures that are so realistic that you think you're actually watching a movie or seeing something in reality. It's like a virtual reality 3D rendering that takes place within the target's mind. The images and motion pictures manifest themselves in such a way that the target, if they are not aware that this technology is being used on them, will believe that they are natural thoughts and natural images.
And he does like things with visual effects, like he makes these holograms and stuff like that, and stages little drama like things and whatnot, like movies.
And this thing you saw last night, you're not sure whether that was him or a hologram. Is that also correct?
That's true. I don't know. He's like an expert. He does like avatars.
My experience with it is what they've done is they've done stuff like that, or like I'll be laying in my bed and then like a fire, like the smoke alarm will turn into like a face, and then the face will start talking to me and then telling me all these derogatory things like, we're going to break into your apartment and come and cut your head off on the bed or something. I mean, it's all stuff like that. And they have done stuff where they've tried to pretend like it was my friend. I had this one, I'd been up for a few days, but I had this one ATM machine turn into like a this figure, and it was like pointing to get out, like, get out of here, get out of here. Like, it was very weird. It didn't turn into like a person, but it started resembling, it's hard to explain, was features of a person with a face. And
this interface is so unbelievably grotesque. I mean, I get just like mangled, like my thoughts are just like mangled prey, where logic and reason are, I'm hearing, go away, are like nothing, where it actually takes a holographic form, where it's like in my field, I'm hearing material. It's like it configures into dialogue and visuals that are like, sometimes it's like morphing, you know, like one's got like a jumble of like body parts that are like globbing in and out of each other. I mean, just like the way that it animates my torture, the way that it animates that space of processing its material in order to reverse engineer the finished product is not something that has to be logical. It's entirely fucking demonic, it's grotesque, and it forces me to carry this. I'm hearing burden, I'm hearing with us, for us. It's hurting people, and it's fooling people. And I really don't want to be too crude or use too much profanity, but I'm holding so much. I'm hearing data, information, I'm hearing mining machine. I have so much to share with everybody that I really don't want to have to censor the truth. This is a really ugly machine. It's a really ugly system.
I'm there, and there's this other guy on the other side of the couch, and there's this movie that's they watched earlier. I don't remember what movie it was, but it was like the intro scene. You know how it repeats, and you know, before you hit play movie or pick a scene or whatever. Like, stuff kind of got weird with this dude. Like, he's getting a little more aggressive, and I'm like, and dude, I'm telling you, this guy's like a huge guy. And so, like, I'm like not really sure what the limits are, like what he can and can't do, but he's like getting a little more like aggressive, but not like directly threatening me or anything. But he's kind of moving around the house, and he's like pissed off about this music situation. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I'm watching this movie scene, and it's like all this like weird imagery was going on in the back of it, like very spooky. It's like hard to put into words, but it was like in the background of this play scene, it was like a yellowish tan blank screen with like the words of like play, and it had like some music going, like some weird music going, but there was stuff going on like in the background of the scene like that's not normally there, and I can't really explain it. And it was just like spooky, weird like imagery that would like flash me, and then I'm watching the screen again, and like I said, all this like weird imagery is coming on it, and I'm just weirded out by the whole thing, and I'm stuck there. I feel like I'm stuck. And all of a sudden there's a clip of, in the background, just like I described before with the imagery, but it looked like me in the it looked like a clip from where I used to buy drugs at. I was at this homeless camp that I used to go to a lot, and it was like off the freeway, and so there's like long tall grass, and it looked like a camera was in there, and it was literally a videotape of me walking through this field, and it looked like it was coming from like a hidden camera that was stuck in there. And I was just like, what in the world? First of all, like, how'd they tape that? And then how'd they get this? It'd be one thing if I saw a clip of it, but I'm saying it's like projected onto a DVD cut screen, you know? It's like, I was just...
When it cuts to a 2 or 3 second clip of me,
which it has forced me to interface with this thing for so long, that to have something like false light technology that is powering holograms, like talking about actual visual imagery, inclusive of still visual propaganda. For example, my very first false light hologram was an image of angels, and these angels, and it looked like archangels, and it looked like Archangel Michael was in the center, and then on its flanks were several other angels. And I thought, that image is so bright. First of all, it looks artificial. Second, it looks like a two-dimensional image with a really, really bright light behind it. I said the first false light hologram I had was angels, and I made fun of it even because it seemed so two-dimensional to me.
And I don't mean like a hologram, like a hologram appeared in 3D before my eyes. No, it was 2D.
Okay, so think we all might be talking about the same thing here? This stuff is real, guys. This stuff is not paranoia or drug hallucinations. This is advanced technology being used to harass and terrorize unsuspecting people who do not deserve this treatment whatsoever. My channel is not that big, but still, I get genuine comments all the time, and even quite a few emails from people saying how much they can relate to my story because the same things have happened to them. Here's one such email regarding holograms, the one I told you I would read out loud, from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. He's responding to my email. I took a look at the video you sent. It definitely is what I have experienced. What's difficult for me to discern is whether it was done through some kind of energy wave or if it was done with projection mapping inside of my apartment. There were aspects of the visual that seemed directly correlated to it being some type of projector being used, but other aspects of it that could only be explained with someone sending visuals to my brain. As crazy as that sounds, I'm not sure how else it would be done. So, here's his story with holograms. The past 3+ years, I've been experiencing deep layers of gang stalking. Nearly every aspect of my life was being deeply manipulated, watched, and controlled. Over the years, I had moments of clarity, but it took many different experiences in order to fully comprehend the gravity of the situation I was in. All of my apartments had been broken into. All of my important documents were stolen. My computers, phones, and TVs were hacked into, and eventually all of these devices were subsequently stolen. My personal relationships were manipulated. Every person I was meeting were setups and manipulated. If I met someone at an event, at a meeting, in a treatment program, or even the people I was dating, were part of this gang stalking. I would go through rounds of setting my life up, meeting new people, and thinking there was no way they could be involved in this. Then slowly it would be revealed to me that every single person in my life were involved in this gang stalking. They are patient, insidious, and maniacally detail-oriented. They had access to my technology, and then when I was researching apartments or looking up places I was going, they would send people to already be at these locations. Then I would be manipulated into thinking I was meeting a new friend or starting to date someone new, and every single person that was in my life was actually part of this gang stalking. After several years of dealing with this, and at least 5 rounds of trying to completely rebuild my life, I thought I had escaped the stalking. I was able to get a new job, a new relationship, rent a new apartment, meet new friends, rebuy all of my possessions, get a new car, and truly felt like I had escaped this situation. I even had been gaslighted into believing I was crazy and that these things weren't actually happening. I knew deep in my heart that a complex network of demons had taken over my life, but it was so complex and unbelievable that somehow I just thought I could move on from it and try to rebuild and forget. Then all at once, everything came crashing down again. After months and months of feeling free from this gang stalking, I made the mistake of reaching out to someone from my past and was convinced to help them out. I ended up using drugs again with this person, and very quickly it descended into a very dark and demonic energy. It was made very clear to me that this group of people was going to take me out, as they had in the past. I ended up escaping the situation I was in and went back to my apartment. When I got back to my apartment, the first thing I noticed was a red suitcase sitting in the parking lot right next to the door I always go into. Based on everything that has happened to me in the past, this was a very obvious sign to me that this group was planning on getting rid of me that night. I went up to the apartment, completely freaked out, not knowing what to do. When I got into the apartment, I got to the front door and noticed the door was open, as if someone had been inside. I didn't have anywhere else to go, and reluctantly went inside. When I got into the apartment, I immediately noticed that someone had been inside my apartment. My mattress was pulled away from the wall, and someone had cut a long hole in the back of my mattress, as if someone had put something in there or was hiding inside the mattress. I also noticed that my brand new jewelry I had just bought was gone, and a box of my personal important documents were gone through, and several of my important documents were missing. Feeling completely overwhelmed and without any help, I went to the living room and sat down in my chair. From this chair, I could see down the hallway, all of my living room, and out of the windows. I ended up grabbing a knife from the kitchen and put it down in front of me, not knowing who was inside of my apartment or what was going to happen next. As soon as I sat down, I could just sense that someone was either in the apartment or something demonic was going on around me. As I sat there, I was looking towards my bed that was in the living room, and there was a very large mirror leaning up against the wall beside my bed. For whatever reason, my entire focus was on this mirror and on the bed. Because there was a large cut made to the back of my bed, I didn't know if someone was in there or if something had been put inside the mattress. My attention was staring at the mirror. After about 10 minutes, I started noticing what appeared to be colors or lights showing up on the mirror. At first, I was trying to tell myself that nothing was going on, but pretty quickly I realized I was 100% seeing something in the mirror. The colors were holographic, blue and red, orange and teal. I then noticed that the images I was seeing looked like a projection of a video conference call onto my mirror. I could see several different people in separate windows as if a group of people were on a video call at the same time. I could not hear anything, but slowly I started realizing that the people showing up in the mirror were all people from my life, very good friends of mine that had not been in my life for quite a while, people I deeply cared about, along with people I had done drugs with in the past. I was in complete shock. I had suspected in the past that some of these people may have been involved in my gang stalking, but some of them I would have never guessed in my entire life that they would ever be involved in this. As the silent videos were being played on my mirror, I focused in on each person individually and realized that it was over 5 people from my life, and all of them are people I would say I was really close with at one point. They were shaking their head, putting their fingers up to their mouth as if they were telling me to be quiet, and even making shocked faces as if they were trying to scare me or communicate to me that I should be scared. I know how crazy this sounds, and I'm trying my best to describe this to you, but it was 100% real. I was intensely aware, paying attention to every detail, and it was for sure someone projecting a video image onto my mirror. I kept looking around the ceiling or beside the bed, trying to figure out where the image was coming from. It was a crystal clear image and definitely was a group video chat that was somehow being projected onto the surface of my mirror. And all of the people in the video were people I knew. I watched the video being played for over 30 minutes. I even was talking out loud to the people I was seeing in the video chats, and although I could not hear what they were saying, I could see that they would visually respond to me based on what I was saying, nodding their heads, shaking their heads no, signaling with their hands, laughing together as a response to the things I was saying. The message I was getting from this video projection was that these were the people that were involved in my gang stalking, and that they were showing their faces to me because they planned on harming me that night, and it wouldn't make any difference to them if I saw their faces because I wasn't going to be alive by the end of the night. I ended up pleading for my life out loud, begging with the people I could see in the projection, telling them I didn't want to be harmed, that I had a purpose still here on the planet, and begging them not to hurt me. After I would say these things out loud, I could see them respond by laughing together, showing me I needed to shut up by putting their fingers over their mouth or interacting with each other on the video, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. While I was in this moment, I did my best to stay in the present moment and really focus on all the details. There's absolutely no way in hell that this was paranoia or my brain making this up. The images were as real as looking at a computer screen, and the collection of people on the screen were all from different parts of my life, and there's absolutely zero chance that my brain created all of this on its own. I don't understand the purpose or what exact technology was used, but somehow someone could see me inside of my apartment, was seeing my reactions and could hear me, and was using some type of micro projection mapping onto my mirror, and even had broken into my apartment to destroy things and steal important items to make it known that this was physically happening, and there was no way for me to deny it. It would be one thing if I just had all of these visuals, but had no proof of anything happening physically. But I know for sure my door was unlocked and open, my jewelry was stolen, My important documents were stolen, and this video was being projected and was absolutely crystal clear, and there was no denying it was real. I really wish I had a picture of this or a video to be able to show you what everything looked like exactly, but unfortunately my phone had been hacked into earlier in the night, and I didn't have any way to record this. But I'm fully aware how crazy this sounds, and I'm not ashamed to share this with people, because I'm not looking for any approval from anyone. I know for sure all of this was real, and that a group of people I deeply cared about were showing me that they wanted me harmed, had broken into my apartment, and had stolen many things from my apartment. I'm sharing this story in hopes that someone else will hear this and be able to relate to what I'm saying. I know for sure these tactics are used by other gang stalkers, and that what I was shown and what happened to me is not a unique experience. With how careful and meticulous these people were, there's absolutely no way this was their first time doing this. This targeting stuff is deep, multifaceted, goes far beyond being gang stalked and followed around by strangers. Again, it's different for everyone. Not all targets get hit with hearing V2K. Not all targets are shown holograms, creepy shadows, and light displays. Not all targets are gang stalked either. And I think people should start using these two terms a little more clearly. When I say targeting, I'm referring to the technological aspect of this whole thing, like V2K, or voices and other sounds being projected into one's surrounding environment, being shown holograms, the extremely advanced computer and cell phone hacking that a lot of us have went through, getting hit with some sort of directed energy weapons, these sort of things. When I say gang stalking, I'm referring to the social aspect of this whole thing, being followed in public by strangers, street theater, workplace harassment, slander campaigns, that sort of thing. For me, that seems to be the easiest and clearest way to refer to all of this stuff. Anyways, I digress. So now a shorter segment on creepy shadows being projected into the target's environments, as well as light displays, for lack of a better term. Let's get into that. And why am I talking about shadows and lights in a video about holograms? Well, because it's in the same ballpark. It's definitely related. Visual effects from targeting. It sure seems like these shadows and light displays are just two more settings or capabilities of these hologram broadcasts. Again, I'm in way over my head here as far as knowing the specific mechanics. It would seem that this new tech they are using is huge in scope, multifaceted, and an absolute beast. I don't know how this stuff is being done, but I know for a fact that somehow it is being done. And in addition to the V2K, some more hard-to-believe stuff, he was doing visual effects that I have no idea how he accomplished. Like, for instance, it could have been that same night, I think it was actually, but I was in my bed being harassed by him. He taunted me with his usual, "I can't believe you still haven't figured it out, Steve." I bluffed this one time, and not very cleverly. I was grasping at straws, to be honest. I had no earthly idea how he was doing any of this. I still don't. But I remember saying petulantly, "I did figure it out. I know it's somehow wired through that smoke detector on the ceiling." And I pointed. Yeah, you gotta understand, that's what it was like in this apartment. Everything I was doing, I pointed, and he knew what I was pointing at. He was able to comment on it, as if he had full visual and audio of everything I was seeing and doing. Anyways, I pointed to the smoke detector. He says, "Then why haven't you done anything about it?" I said, "I don't want to get electrocuted. I don't know how you got it set up." I look over at the wall near my bed, and I see a shadow on the wall of presumably him. So I just said, "I don't know how you got it set up." And I see on the shadow him going like, I swear, this is all true. And I see a 5-foot tall shadow of presumably him starting to do this gesture up and down with his hands in a vulgar manner.
It's really a different type of obsession when these people are targeting you. But I would get stuck in this state after 20 minutes of sleep. And that would be times where I would just wake up, and I would that would literally be like a black figure standing over me. I would be wide awake after I opened my eyes up partially. I would be awake, and I would see black figures standing over me. And some people may call this demons, they'll call them aliens, but for the most part, they are holograms displayed by your targeters with the use of neurologistic technology. That's basically what I call it.
The little shadows, a broadcast, you might not be able to see the broadcast. In some circumstances, yeah, you could see like a hologram broadcast. But whether you can see it or not, they do have the capability to cast a shadow. And when they can do that, it can again cause terror. So you might look over by the window and see like a shadow. It looked like a man standing right outside with a AK-47 or something like that. And they're using a broadcast to cast that shadow, and that can be very intimidating, and it can cause terror and make you feel afraid for your life. And I got sick of that. I got tired of it, and I started to realize that there was actually nobody there, and it's like they always just got away around the corner or something, and you start to realize like they're doing something. This is broadcast stuff.
I used to be able to see red light with my eyes closed or with my eyes open in my bathroom, and there would be illuminating red light flashing on the wall.
Another visual trick I saw in this apartment one night, I'm thinking, how is he getting in and out of my apartment so quickly? Because I've never heard of V2K at this point. I didn't know that it was possible to throw noises in an environment. So I thought that I was like, how is he getting in and out of my apartment so quickly? Because I'd be downstairs and would hear shuffling upstairs that sounded so real. And there were no doors upstairs. I remember me saying out loud, what do you have, like secret trap doors in here or something? I hear laughter. I said, I knew it. Where is it? One section of the wall just illuminated, as if a small flashlight was being shown on it. My jaw dropped again. There were no windows or angles from which someone I couldn't see could possibly shine a flashlight into my room. And as quickly as the light showed up, it then moved from that section of the wall to the next, then across to the closet, until he had covered every section of the room. More sick laughter from him, as if this whole episode was to taunt me with the fact that he can get at me from any and all angles.
And I'm waiting there, and all of a sudden, like on the side of this RV, this light blasts on the side. Like it was like someone turned a spotlight on it. And I'm looking around and I don't see where this is coming from. Like I don't see how this is possible. So the first thing I see is like the spotlight, bright light on the side of the RV. And then I see like a shadow, like shadows forming. And it was weird because like the shadows weren't realistic. It wasn't like it was an actual person for the shadow. It was like cartoony, which made it like even more aggravating, right? And this is what it was depicting. It was depicting like a male body part, if you know what I'm saying, and a female's head. And the shadows started interacting with each other. So, but like I said, it didn't look realistic. It looked like cartoonish. And it was just like, basically like the whole thing that it was saying was like, basically your girl is getting, getting used for drugs, which may or may not have been true. Probably true, to be honest. Pretty sure it was true, but I don't think it was happening in that moment. But so like this is happening and I'm seeing this, I'm like, and I knew it wasn't real. I knew it wasn't an actual depiction of what was going on. Like the shadows weren't coming from them. But I'm looking around and I don't know how this, like where's the light source coming from? Who's messing with the shadows and how are they making it look like this without a bunch of practice and like, multiple people involved? It was so strange, right? And I still don't know how it was pulled off, right?
Again, we're talking about the same experiences here. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something I really haven't seen too many targeted individuals describe, but it is absolutely something I've experienced on 2 different occasions that I can recall. And that's being shown text or in my case, what looked like written messages, like on a note, placed in my visual field, almost like it was coming from my peripherals. Here's my main story with that. But before I show it, I will point this out, that it truly, really appeared like these notes were being passed to me, in this case, on fortune cookie fortunes. And I even had the sensation of picking them up and bringing them closer to my face to read them. But during this day, I was under such heavy influence from mind control, I believe that this was just another capability of these hologram broadcasts.
This is all a trick. It's a lie. That's when shit got really dark. I remember going to get a drink from the fridge, a blue raspberry body armor, and looking at some prepared chicken parm dinners in my fridge, which I've purchased and enjoyed 100 times before. Well, these two I currently had this dark blue film all over them, as if someone had sprayed something directly on them. Of course, I naturally thought, what the fuck? Is someone poisoning my food, or at least tampering with it? This sent me in a panic. I threw the food out, just grabbed the drink, went in my room, slammed the door behind me, locked it, as if to barricade myself in. I'm laying in my bed and start seeing my door shake and hearing, and it looks like someone's pounding on it, trying to get through. Someone's pounding on it, trying to get in. I'm like, what the fuck do you want? Just more pounding. Like really pounding now, so that I'm worried the lock isn't going to hold. I rush to the door, sit down with my back to it for extra support. You know, like this, again, on the floor, against the door, rocking back and forth, with my head in my hands in torment and anguish. I take a sip of my drink and notice it tastes bitter. I'm like, what the fuck? Did you put something in my drink? What happened next, I can't make sense of. A little fortune from a fortune cookie is slid under the door that says, I just read it, it says THC. So remember, I just said out loud, what, did you put something in my drink? I pick up a fortune slid under the crack of the door. And no verbal response, just the fortune. It says THC. I said, THC? In a traumatized daze, I say, oh, with all the shit I've been taking, that might actually help. No verbal response. But another fortune was slid under the door. And this one said, thanks for understanding. Was someone really sliding fortunes to me under the door? Logistically, that seems unlikely. How would they have printed responses, appropriate responses to the conversation, prepared for this?
So, never mind the pounding on the door that I saw and heard that made it look like my door wasn't even going to hold. And then right after the fortune cookie thing, if you want to hear the whole story, watch my video, part 3, Out of the Vulgar Night Through God's Grace. But basically, I got in a physical battle with my armoire, because at the time it truly seemed that someone was trying to come into my room through the armoire. The edges of the doors on it were protruding out, like someone was about to bust through. I'm telling you, it was so real looking. I saw it with my own eyes, in my visual field. In the end, though, there was nobody inside my armoire. Yet another visual effect from targeting. Have you ever seen the Black Mirror episode Playtest? This whole experience was a lot like that. But I haven't heard enough other targeted individuals talk about something similar to this that could really validate my experience. Not yet, anyways. I'm curious, guys, has something like this ever happened to you during a targeting episode? If so, please reach out. I'd be very interested to hear about it. But anyways, back to the fortune cookie thing. So, I just want to talk about a specific detail that's really weird, but that I definitely noticed on both the occasions that text or a note was put in my visual field. So, I was crouching with my back to the door, right? And these fortune cookies were being passed to me under the door crack, right? Well, I distinctly remember, seeing a vague hand, passing the fortune cookie to me. And even, a little, shuffling sound like that. I swear, that's what it was like. Where was I? I distinctly remember, seeing a vague hand passing the fortune cookie to me. Which, if it was really someone passing me a note, wouldn't make sense, right? I was by myself in that room. And the whole targeting scenario at that time was that it seemed like someone was harassing me outside, right outside my door. How would I see a hand going in like that? Under the door crack, a hand can't fit. But I did see that, 100%. And the other time this happened was in my apartment on Howard Street, Richard's place I was renting a year prior. The script of this particular targeting instance was that Richard was trying to recruit me, which I definitely have my doubts that this was even a real proposition or possibility, but at the time, that's what I was trying to be tricked into, at least, into joining him or listening to him or being subservient to him and to stop fighting this, as the V2K would often say at that time. But anyways, he tried to make it seem like I had no choice but to join up with the gang stalkers. I mentioned in my videos that he told me he had a local guy, Julio, that he just got on board, but I didn't mention how that message was conveyed to me. Much like the fortune cookie thing, it was like a note that was passed to me by some vague hand that I only very briefly saw from my peripherals that said, and it was like a hand like, and it said, now I got Julio. And just as soon as I read it with my eyes, or now I got Julio. And as soon as I read it with my eyes and my actual real field of vision, the hand and the note were quickly withdrawn. So again, I haven't found a whole lot to back up these stories yet. However, that girl Francine I just played a bunch of clips from, well, she does describe something similar. Yet another reason I want to reach out to her. But in the first video, what she's saying initially about surveillance is not relevant to the point I'm trying to make. Instead, notice towards the end of the clip. Watch as she describes first what she's hearing, but then what she's seeing.
And I'm going to have to do a video about a recent surveillance system that has really tailgated this terrorist attack and added density to my vehicle as I'm traveling. I mean, it's like traveling down a tunnel or a portal. It's really kind of like being dragged down it. And then it's like I've got, besides the added weight density of the surveillance that is responding or carrying forth, I'm starting to realize that the surveillance system has been there for a lot of I'm hearing training, I'm hearing us, I'm hearing with it, and I'm getting research, seeing it in text, and it's something that I have noticed in, again, being under constant observation. The nature of the surveillance technology is one that would just baffle people if they understood how many dimensions of surveillance, how invasive, also how predictive, and how I'm hearing visceral, and I'm seeing in text right out in front of me, visceral. But it's only part of the word, V-I-S, and this is something that I like to call the Rorschach effect. It's also a little bit of a fill in the blanks. So to gauge interactivity, and I'm hearing response with this AI interface. One of its functions.
So yeah, guys, I'm not saying that what I experienced with the fortune cookie fortunes and what Francine is describing is the same exact thing, but I mean, to me, it sure seems like it. Seeing letters being put in your visual field. Again, same ballpark. So guys, I know how crazy this all sounds, okay? Really, I do. But I don't talk about made-up stories or make-believe things or things I think I maybe might have seen when I was high once. No, this is actually real. It's actually the truth. I would not be on here talking about such strange things if it wasn't the truth, but it is, I promise you. And I know that that notion is something all targets can relate to.
How they did it, how this stuff happens, it just sounds ridiculous, but just, I wouldn't put it here, you know, if knowing it's ridiculous if this stuff wasn't really true.
So I have a couple more things to show you guys, both about 7 or 8 minutes long. The first is a very interesting clip from Matthew Aaron's extremely well done presentation on targeting, in which he attempts to tackle the topic of visual effects from targeting, and even offers his theory on how it's being accomplished. Check it out.
As I said before, some TIs report experiencing inexplicable visual effects, but generally only at the times and places that they experience repeated bouts of electronic harassment. For example, generally in their homes, but nowhere else. These induced visual effects are reported as being most common and most prominent under low light conditions, or in complete darkness. The visual effects may even be perceived with the eyes closed, as if the energy responsible for them can pass right through one's closed eyelids in addition to one's walls. Reported visual harassment of this kind includes faint flashes of light, Slowly swirling greenish coronal discharges, which look like small versions of the aurora borealis, and balls of faint red light that seem to slowly advance toward or recede from the targeted person. The visual effects can also include fields of countless points of faint monochromatic flickering light, much like the quote-unquote snow on an old television set, which isn't receiving a proper signal, as depicted here. This effect is often best seen in flat, reflective metallic surfaces, such as baking sheets, mirrors, the enameled outer shells of metal appliances, and the outer shells of stainless steel refrigerators. Monochromatic moving images can be partially incorporated into these television snow-like patterns, similar to crude black and white movies on old television sets. Shadowy figures can be made to slowly sweep or glide across one's ceiling or walls, or they can be made to appear to loom out of the walls, again mostly when the lights are low or completely off. According to other reports, faint but high-resolution holograms can become incorporated into or overlaid on top of pictures, paintings, wall hangings, window reflections, or wallpaper patterns. Targeted individuals who experience these effects report that the nature of these images are typically what one might expect from the pathological mind of a sadistic, psychopathic teenager bent on harassing others. Unlike with the microwave auditory effect and V2K, my review of the biomedical literature revealed no published evidence on the stimulation of the visual system by modulated microwaves or other frequencies of radio waves. However, it did reveal information supporting a tentative hypothesis for photoreceptor stimulation by modulated radio frequency signals, which is plausible from a neuroscientific standpoint. There is scientific evidence that radio frequency energy can affect voltage-gated calcium channels. Professor Martin Paul of Washington State University reviewed this evidence in papers published in the Journal of Cellular and Molecular Medicine and the Journal of Chemical Neuroanatomy. Voltage-gated calcium channels are widely distributed throughout the body. These ion channels play key roles in the contraction of skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and heart muscle, the transmission of signals between nerve cells, the secretion of hormones from glands, and several other bioelectrochemical processes. In fact, the coupling effects between radio frequency energy and voltage-gated calcium channels, and possibly other types of voltage-gated ion channels as well, may be the central mechanisms underlying the so-called non-thermal bioeffects of radio waves. In the eye, sensory cells or photoreceptors called rods and cones transduce incoming visible light signals into cascades of electrochemical events. Voltage-gated calcium channels are a critical part of the mechanism by which these photoreceptor cells pass that transduced sensory information to the first neurons, labeled 3, along the ascending visual pathway. It seems plausible that certain modulated radio wave signals might have weak effects on voltage-gated calcium channels in rods and cones, and that these effects might produce perceptual visual experiences, especially when the activities of the rods and cones are little affected by visible light. The functioning of rods and cones is optimized to electromagnetic radiation in the visible frequency band, in other words, to visible light. Therefore, under bright visible light, the weaker effects of modulated radio waves may tend to get swamped out by normal visual stimuli. This may explain why the bizarre visual anomalies and other visual effects experienced by many TIs tend to happen in the dark or with the eyes closed. It's also scientifically plausible that the types of photoreceptors stimulated and the intensity of that stimulation depend on the modulation pattern of the incoming radio waves. Perhaps non-public domain researchers, from DARPA for example, figured out how to spatially encode a beamed image coordinate system with different patterns of RF signal modulation in order to stimulate photoreceptors in an image-forming pattern, possibly even in perceived colors. Projecting an image-encoded beam via a spatially dependent pattern of radio wave modulation may be trivial nowadays. For example, imagine that the image shown here is being beamed onto a screen by a PowerPoint projector or similar projection system. Obviously, a projector of this kind can encode different hues and intensities of visible light at different coordinates in the projected beam. We all know that the projected light can also be made to change dynamically to create video images or motion pictures. To recap, there's good scientific evidence that microwaves and other frequencies of radio waves can have coupling effects on the activities of voltage-gated calcium channels. These ion channels function in vision, muscle contraction, the beating of the heart, the transfer of nerve impulses through the nervous system, the secretion of hormones from glands, and many other bioelectrochemical processes. I have described a hypothetical scenario in which appropriately tuned modulations of radio waves might influence the rods and cones in the eye, especially under low light conditions. I want to be perfectly clear that this hypothesis is only informed speculation at present. There is no publicly available scientific literature documenting stimulation of the visual system by modulated microwaves or radio waves. At the same time, many credible individuals have independently reported through-wall visual effects, like the ones I've described, during their electronic harassment, and my hypothesis is plausible from a neuroscientific standpoint. Accordingly, I encourage scientists to consider how these through-wall visual effects might be accomplished by modulated radio waves. If these effects are in fact proven, then certain radio frequency devices may very well be capable of visual forms of extremely invasive psychological harassment, terror campaigns, and even psychological torture, especially with unsuspecting victims. Constantly beaming images through the walls of a target's home, and even through their closed eyelids, could allow for subliminal suggestion and even dream manipulation in ways that ordinary people would find very difficult to escape, even in what should be the sanctity of their own homes.
That whole presentation from Matthew Aaron is definitely worth watching and can be found listed as the 5th video in my public playlist, Targeted Individuals Best, or Targeted Individual Videos Best. Francine's video is the 2nd video in that same playlist for anyone who's curious. Well, alright guys, we've reached the end here. My information is listed on my main YouTube channel if anyone wants to reach out to discuss any of this stuff. Before we go, I will leave you with this very interesting article in Forbes from 2018 regarding holograms. Do you guys think that this field of research was what was used on me and everyone else I showed in this video? Let me know what you think. Alright guys, Stephen Dubuque here on YouTube as Not Bad for a Target, signing off. As always, thanks for watching and God bless.
Hey guys, what's up? So I found a few very interesting articles from 2018. One in Forbes, scientists project holograms into the brain to create experiences. Now, I believe that this exact type of research and technology is the kind that was used on me to make me see holograms in my room by myself, looking at a flashlight. So I'm actually going to use another similar article, not this Forbes one, for this video because it has an option to play the article in audio. So I'm about to do that in a second. But just one thing that, one little piece of commentary I'll make is that, these articles come out saying like, oh, scientists did this experiment on mice and, maybe one day in the future, this type of thing could happen, and you might be able to see something like this in your life. And that's how they always do it, though, isn't it? Like a soft disclosure. They're saying that, scientists at Berkeley are researching this, but it's still in the very early stages. When in actuality, they've probably been doing this for decades, So I definitely am going to look into this more and, research it more. But it has to do with optogenetics, using light to stimulate the brain, and the way that they play back these experiences is through holograms. So honestly, this seems like it's right up my alley as far as what I experienced in seeing the hologram seeming to play on a flashlight. So anyway, I'm going to go over to this other website and check out this article. I think you'll find it interesting. And another thing with these controlled disclosure mainstream media articles is about technology and the kind of technology that we like to investigate and learn more about, is that they're always talking about how great this can be, that they're going to use it to, heal the sick, heal the blind, you know, with people with missing limbs and who can't see. That's what this is going to be used for. They never talk about how it's used to, not that it's going to be used in, you know, in some distant future, but no, this exact kind of thing is being used to terrorize and intimidate people while they're alone and confused in their home, having no idea what's going on. They never talk about that, do they? Anyways, listen to this article. At least has some, definitely has some things that are worth hearing if you're interested in how I saw these holograms.
Scientists create holographic projections in the brain that can create false memories. Big think.
We've all seen sci-fi movies like Total Recall and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where a character has their memory erased. An even more frightening trope, sometimes a character is imbued with a false memory. Though usually relegated to the world of the fantastical, real-life scientists today believe they have a machine that can do such things, what's known as a holographic brain modulator. Researchers at UC Berkeley have been developing it, the details of which were published recently in the journal, Nature Communications. There is definitely tons of room for misuse here, but the machine could also garner incredible benefits, such as helping patients regain lost memories, or even senses. It's also likely to vault neuroscience research into the stratosphere. The brain modulator monitors and then alters neural activity. It does this by isolating certain sets of neurons, at first dozens, then hundreds, and then thousands at a time, and stimulating them in particular patterns that mimic authentic brain activity. As a result, it is able to trick the brain into believing it had sensed, seen, or experienced an event or phenomenon which never occurred. For those who have lost a sense or a limb, this could be a godsend. Consider an amputee who has an artificial arm. Such technology could restore the sense of touch. What about a blind person who gets a robotic eye? This breakthrough could help gather and interpret visual data for the brain, allowing the eye to work just like a real one. We usually think of holograms as 3D images floating in space, but it's actually the bending of light into certain 3D shapes. Image credit. Getty Images. Alan Martinley is a doctoral student at UC Berkeley and one of 3 co-authors on the project. He said in a press release, "This has great potential for neural prostheses, since it has the precision needed for the brain to interpret the pattern of activation. If you can read and write the language of the brain, you can speak to it in its own language and it can interpret the message much better. This is one of the first steps in a long road to develop a technology that could be a virtual brain implant with additional senses or enhanced senses. So far, it's been tested on laboratory mice. With their heads immobilized, they were made to walk on treadmills. UC Berkeley scientists then used this technique to target specific neurons, stimulating the surface of a part of the brain called the somatosensory cortex. This is an area just 1/10 of a millimeter thick. It's the brain's motor center, which controls things like vision and touch. Scientists placed holographic obstacles in the mice's way as they were walking. This took place inside their brains, like an illusion. Although the scientists noticed no change in behavior, monitoring showed that each mouse's brain responded as if the obstacle was real. Now, UC Berkeley scientists are developing ways in which to accurately detect behavior after a mouse has been stimulated with the device. Computer-generated holography was used to simulate the obstacles. Holography is the practice of bending and focusing light into 3D shapes. The process works by focusing attention on a 3D area of the brain, consisting of thousands of different neurons. From there, singular neurons are selected, each about the width of a human hair. The modulator activates 50 of them at a time using a 3D laser technique. First one jumble of 50 is activated, then another and another. It repeats this action up to 300 times per second. The technique the machine uses to generate the hologram is called three-dimensional scanless holographic optogenetics with temporal focusing, 3D shot. First, a liquid crystal screen is set up. This acts something like a photographic negative, but is instead a holographic one. Using the negative, scientists shape the light from 40W lasers into whatever 3D pattern they've chosen inside the brain. Laser pulses are shot out every microsecond in bursts that last a mere femtosecond, 1/4,000,000th of a second, in order to maintain the hologram. A sample hologram with 50 randomly distributed neuron targets spanning a region 500 microns square and 250 microns deep. Image credit: UC Berkeley. The biggest breakthrough was isolating certain individual neurons and causing them to fire without affecting their neighbors. The ability to target neurons precisely is a major advancement that will likely inspire other innovations. So far, researchers have only tested the technique on a small portion of the brain. Much more research must be done to prove it can stimulate other areas. What's more, the machine is enormous in size. UC Berkeley scientists, however, believe that over time, they'll be able to scale it down to the size of a knapsack. They'll also record different patterns and cause a mouse's brain to play them back, in order to see if each particular pattern always results in the same response. They believe that in time they'll have the ability to control neural activity in the cortex, and so be able to recreate any perception or sensation one can think of.